Scheme 4?
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Yeah, since we've been on it, we might as well just go the whole route. I don't know how many schemes are going to be. We know there's 3 that government has confirmed. Citizen Watchdog has now Scheme 4, and who knows how many of these sequels we're going to have. Good evening. Welcome into my state of mind. We will take a look at Warwick again this evening. Citizen Watchdog Rob Cote is here. Reportedly, there is a formal finance overview, perhaps even emergency characterized meeting coming up on Wednesday of this week in the fine city of Warwick, the 2nd largest municipality in the state. There's a lot of stuff going on and an admittance to an FBI presence in town, and so we will get the latest. We will review the first 3 schemes for those of you who are not keeping score, and present scheme number 4, all of which combined add up to about 7 figures worth of sloppy or misuse of taxpayer dollars. On our list of holy cow, what's going on things, we have a summit in Vietnam, right? And the president suggests that this is going to be a tremendous session with I don't know. I just the characterizations are incredible. With Kim Jong, we're going to have a major power in North Korea. North Korea is going to become a major power, and we are never going to have to worry about nuclear weapons again. Perfect. So this ought to be a very smooth week. Meanwhile, Congress is looking to put the heat on the process by which the special prosecutor's report will be released. This headline reflects the Democratic leader in House investigations, Adam Schiff. He is now saying, look, I don't care whether, I'm paraphrasing of course, whether Bill Barr, our new Attorney General, is inclined to volunteer up most of the report from Bob Mueller. We're going to subpoena it. We're going to do everything we can to solicit it. And if we have to, we're going to bring Mueller to the stand so he can explain it. That is not Mueller's choice, I am sure. That's not his style. This guy has been the definition of discipline and modesty in his work, I think with a mission simply to make the United States of America a better place. Not a red hat, make America great again promise, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So this is going to be pretty interesting. And don't forget, coming up on Wednesday, Michael Cohen will sit in front of Congress in open session and lay the lumber on the president. Gosh knows what he's going to be dealing with. So while we have the president and Kim Jong-un doing their thing, you know, making the world safer, we've got stuff back home that I'm sure he'll have one eye on the entire way. I'm sure his Twitter vehicle will be available to him. Nice moment last night. Of course, one of the ones I haven't seen. I never see the winner in advance. It just don't do it. I never get to it. Not enough movies in my life, but Green Book gets the best picture on my to-do list for the week, and of course it's a boost in sales because it'll be on everybody's to-do list for the week. And the Rhode Island native who directed and had a role in producing the movie gave us a shout out.
They say if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I got a lot of people to thank, starting with the entire state of Rhode Island. Thank you very much.
Nice. Anita tells me it was a good movie, so she'll come on in the last segment for a review if we have some. Then again, we got a lot of schemes in Warwick. I'm not so sure if we're going to get to it. In the meantime, this headline, Warwick. Yes, so Walt Buteau makes a call over to Mayor Solomon last week on another matter that he was looking at, and reportedly Mayor Solomon, in order to deflect on the matter that he was discussing, which reportedly has to do with interesting family hires, whether or not there's an ethics violation. It's all kind of sketchy to me at press time, but you may have seen Walt's story earlier this evening and his follow-ups. He's good at this stuff. So reportedly he's calling over to the mayor asking about this, and the mayor says, I don't know why you're looking at this, but you really ought to be looking at this thing called the FBI in town. What?
Will continue to give
Mayor Joseph Solomon told Target 12 federal inquiries have been made in Warwick City Hall. The Democrat says he has not been interviewed, and he emphasized the case does not involve his administration.
Whether it be
He also would not say what is under investigation at this point. The former city council president was elected to his first term as mayor in November. He became acting mayor last spring after Scott Avedisian stepped down when he was appointed RIPTA's chief executive officer. Avedisian, who became mayor in 2000, says he has not heard anything about a federal investigation involving his administration. The Republican says he has not been contacted by federal investigators, telling us, if there was a question, I think someone would have called me by now. Mayor Solomon says he did not know how many people have been interviewed or when anyone was questioned, telling us until the investigation is complete, he cannot comment any further.
I don't even know what to make of this in terms of Solomon's reaction, other than a deflection. Rob Cote is the guy that's brought most of this information that may have caused the FBI's interest to the public. You've been talking to the town government about this. Welcome, by the way. You've been talking to the town government about this for at least a year.
More than that, 2.5 years.
2.5 years. So the mayor just kind of pops up to Walt, this FBI thing, just pops it up without any kind of real path to follow. And if you talk to anybody in the city of Warwick, nobody's talked to the FBI. So I have to ask you, because you're the one who's brought this to the public, have you talked to the FBI?
Well, Dan, you know what the answer to that is, that you can neither confirm nor deny any conversation with any investigatory agency, which anybody that's responsible would say the same thing.
You know, television's a different media than radio. One's unpreventable smile sometimes tells some of the story. Let me ask you this. Since you're the guy who's brought most of these stories to the table, somewhat uncontested, at least these last schemes
completely
that we're
uncontested
with the fire department. And I can tell you this, Rob has been a consistent visitor to both my radio and television shows over time. He and I have some good battles over some public policy stuff, but I'll tell you this, I am wide open to hearing from anybody else in the city of Warwick about what he's going to present again in review and going forward here. Anybody can come here and contest what he has, either with him or without him. But these last 4 schemes, or 3 schemes, you've got a 4th, right?
Got a 4th.
Got a 4th. These schemes,
maybe more,
as we've talked about, reportedly have caught the eye of the FBI. I wouldn't know what else they were talking or looking at in Warwick. Is there anything else going on in Warwick other than your citizen financial investigative work? Am I missing something here?
Well, I think Warwick, and you and I have had this conversation, is on the brink of financial disaster. And those are just facts. Those will come out eventually. They're going to have to.
Disaster defined as what? What do you mean?
Unfunded liabilities that the city will never be able to pay.
In health benefits?
Health benefits, pension benefits.
But that's a chronic problem. The city of Providence is in the same boat. There are many communities that are in the same boat. Somewhere along the line, the state of Rhode Island, in the same fashion that it went to the state pension programs, are going to have to find a 2-tiered resolution to save municipalities, both on their pensions, those pensions that are not included in the state pension program.
But we're not seeing that action, Dan. We're not seeing any solutions.
No.
We're not even seeing discussion on the solutions.
No, the other post-employment benefits, you might have heard the acronym OPEB, really just health plans for the most part. They are so far out of whack.
$300 million unfunded in Warwick.
$300 million.
$300 million. That is
the liability, unfunded liability.
The healthcare acts just like a pension plan, where people contribute to it. That money gets put into an investment vehicle and it grows to pay the benefits. Unfortunately, in Warwick, the healthcare fund has $0 and 0 pennies in it, and presently has an unfunded liability of approximately $300 million.
How are they paying it? How are they paying
as
claims?
you go? Pay as you go.
Out of the current budget.
Out of the current budget, that's correct.
All right.
So with healthcare cost rising, that means the budget is going to have to rise. For the budget to rise, that means you're going to have more contributions by the readily accessible taxpayer. And that's what we're going to see.
Well, the problem is that I don't think the cap is low enough, but the cap is 4% from year to year on the amount of property taxes you can raise, meaning whatever you had last year, you can only go 4% higher according to state law. That is not something that's ever going to be tackled. Via that problem of unfunded liability will only be incrementally solved by a pay-as-you-go, which will then affect other products and services that the city taxpayers expect.
Correct, but bear in mind, with the revenue from last year's maximum tax increase, every penny went to raises and benefits. Every penny. No money went to services. And we're facing a maximum tax rate again, an increase again this year, guaranteed.
And you were telling me prior to the start of the show there is a Wednesday night session reportedly scheduled.
I've just been told we have a Wednesday night emergency presentation from the mayor on the state of the city's finances. That will be Wednesday night at 7 p.m. at Warwick Vets.
Is that an unusual event? That's not part of the annual state of, city of type of thing?
No, this is something out of the ordinary.
All right. And what would the FBI's interest be in this? But that, financial woes are not something that the FBI would be interested in.
Well,
do you
I
know
think
anybody that's talked to the FBI? So we've had headlines about FBI. Nobody is other than the mayor, who kind of burped out FBI, is suggesting who the FBI might be talking to, or whether it's tied to this particular saga that we will once again elaborate on in the next segment.
Well, I think it would be reasonable to assume, since we've produced the evidence on all of these schemes that have usurped the legislative body, that we have side deals that have been made without any knowledge of elected officials, and monies being transferred to members via electronic wire transfer. I would think that, if I had to guess, I would think that's where this investigation is centered. Now, bear in mind, the Warwick Fire Department, when we brought out the fact that the unused sick time scheme, Scheme 1, hired their own CPA firm, Ward Fisher. So it would also be reasonable to assume that if Ward Fisher did their investigation and found nothing wrong, that they would be on the front page of all the newspapers in the English-speaking world stating, Cody was wrong, there is no problem. But they have not released their findings yet. And it's pretty clear by the documents that we have from the city of Warwick that they were paid in a manner that was not reflective of the contract documents.
All right, when we come back, we'll remind you what some of these interesting schemes have been and what's coming. Stay with us. So that would be a worksheet on paper chronicling what, sick time or vacation time, which is that?
Banked holiday time.
Banked holiday time. There you go. And that's a binder. It's just one of the many items. Here's a second one. Not that I expect you to be able to read it, but you get a general sense. And the reason we're putting that up is that in Warwick, reportedly, that is the beginning and the end of the technology that covers the accounting of such matters, correct?
Pencil and paper and erasers. And binders about yay thick. It's problematic, to say the least. So when you go through a sheet that's accounting for unused sick time, which we have, $1 million line item, and you see eraser marks on almost every page, one would think that could be problematic.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing
Sad.
Because it's funny. First headline, to remind you, was the sick time saga. This is now like program 4, and between radio and television, 12. I don't know. That's way back. That's the first saga within the last 6 months. Hold on. Actually, go ahead. The first one, the second one is on vacation time, and the third is on the medical exams.
Correct.
All right, those are 3 separate news stories, all of which have become kind of part of this saga of the fire department spending. The sick time, remind everybody, give me the cliff notes on that.
So the unused sick time, they came up with their own calculation and how they would roll the residual sick time back into the benefit. So in fact, they could get more than what was bargained for in the collective bargaining contract. So net result, we found approximately $400,000 worth of overpayments that should not have been paid. When it finally came out, the fire department union president admitted that, yes, we had the secret side deal that was not ratified, that nobody knew about it, and we began paying our members by electronic wire transfer.
So in other words, there's a contract that regulates this behavior, and the new mechanism was actually something that was implemented without passage of the legislative body
That is
known as the
correct.
City Council.
Unbeknownst to the City Council.
The second one was on vacation.
Yes, unused vacation time was traditionally paid out at 1/5 of a week's pay, 1 day's pay. In the contract for 2015, after the contract was ratified, they went and reprinted the contract to change the 1/5 to 1/4. So there was a 25% increase benefit to the firefighters that was not in the tentative agreement, and was not in the collective bargaining agreement, and was not in the original form of the contract that was presented to the City Council.
And the cumulative value, as we add this up, on Scheme 1, the sick times damage to the taxpayers
North of 400,000.
over what period of time?
3 years.
The vacation time is worth what?
$97,780.
Over the 4 years, over the 3
Oh,
years?
that was over 3 years.
Over 3 years. Okay. So you'd say $500,000.
Yeah.
You know, some people are watching this, especially everybody who's not living in Warwick, going, really? A television show for this? Isn't that just taxpayer slush?
It's called theft.
Okay. Scheme 3, that's a pretty short answer. Scheme 3 is the medical exam.
examinations.
This is a funky one. There was a line item to fund medical exams for new firefighters.
No, actually for existing firefighters.
Oh, okay.
For voluntarily take a medical exam if they chose to. So that
And there was a payment for it.
that was funded
by
every year
by the taxpayers.
by the taxpayers.
But then somebody said, wait a second, we got this luxury plan, health plan, we don't need to do that.
Correct.
But they kept the expenditure.
Well, you have to go back to step one. The expenditure was the benefit was stricken from the contract in 2012. And the finance director actually authored a fiscal note showing the savings from striking this provision in the contract. Yet a week later, they funded the contract. They funded the line item, $60,000 a year, and we saw that after $60,000 was funded, into the third quarter, they had spent $10, but the fire department was coming asking for another $60,000. So I brought to the attention of the City Council that the taxpayers had no obligation to fund this since it was legally stricken from the contract provisions. And that was a result of $326,000, of which we have no idea where that money went. We presume that it was taken out of that line item and refiltered back into the general fund, into the overtime line item.
Now, the City Council, to its credit, put their fist down.
They had no choice in the matter. They had to do that. They got a legal opinion from the City Council lawyer stating, yes, it was removed from the contract 6 years ago. We do not have an obligation to fund this.
But following where that money went, you think it all went. Does the fire department maintain control of that kind of cash flow?
Within the department, they can move the monies from one line item to another.
And they literally have custody of the actual transactional accounts?
If it's not used, it first goes back to the mayor for approval to go, quote unquote, into the general fund, but it's still in the fire department budget, and then it gets reallocated via a transfer resolution to whatever line item
So
they'd
with
like
those
to have it
first
go
three
to.
schemes, what you've suggested, I think, is that this money that has been 400 here, 200 here, 300 here, whatever, has been padding benefits.
Oh, without doubt. It's been a slush fund that they can go to at any given time for reserve cash. And when you just look at the line items of the budget, it's clearly going to overtime.
All right, now Rob says there's a fourth scheme. Stay tuned. Warwick citizen watchdog Rob Cote is with me. By the way, I want to mention that earlier in the show we suggested that there would be an emergency finance meeting on Wednesday regarding some of this investigative stuff. Perhaps but now it's being sold to us as just literally as we were taping the show. The City of Warwick sent out a press release suggesting a State of the City address will be happening on Wednesday. From your knowledge, so it's not an emergency session.
It's
not
about finances, the state of the finances of the city
which
of
you
Warwick.
think is an emergency.
Oh,
I know,
there's no question about it.
but is the state of the city a regular thing in the City of Warwick?
I've never seen it.
They've never done a State of the City address.
Not to my knowledge.
Warwick's first State of the City.
It is. Anita's telling me it's Warwick's first ever State of the City address. So you would characterize it as emergent.
I know how to read a budget. It's an emergency.
Okay. But I wonder if it's in response to the schemes, the problems, the alleged investigation. What is Scheme 4? I only have 90 seconds.
So Scheme 4 is a result
Again, this
of,
is something that no one else has been talking about. This is your work.
Let's
So
preface this.
it's your work product, alleged.
Right. Let's preface this as a question to the city. When we requested a list of all the retirees and the benefits that they went out the door with, unused sick time, unused vacation, and banked holidays, they sent us a sheet, as I sent to you, a breakdown, showing all what was paid out. And it showed that people were paid out banked holidays, anywhere from 18 to 23 banked holidays. Well, when I looked into the contract in 2009, which was the first time, stated when the city was trying to save some money, that they would withhold payment of 10 holidays, 2 in 2009-10, 4 in 2010-11, and 4 in 2010-12, from the fire department to be paid upon retirement at the rate of pay that you're going out. So I put a request for public records to find out any language in the historical contracts going back to whenever. Have there ever been any other times that they could bank holidays? And the answer was no. One time they were allowed to bank holidays. So the question became, if they were allowed to bank 10 holidays, why are they going out the door with 23? So my question is to the City of Warwick, could you clarify, since you've sent me on official letterhead your response that they were only allowed to bank 10 holidays, why are they going out with payment of 20 to 23 holidays with an overpayment of almost $200,000 in the last 3 years?
You think this adds to the same till as schemes 1, 2, and 3?
I would like a clear and cognitive answer, but it seems that officially, as of right now, the answer is pretty clear.
Let me ask you this. Is this the end of the schemes?
Do we have time?
No, we really don't, but I have 30 seconds. Is this the end of the schemes?
I would say that there's probably more to come.
Is that your hunt? You got a hunch, or
I have a lot of documents.
you have more documents?
Yeah.
They're in that folder there?
They're right in that folder.
I don't got time.
There's always next week.
We will see what's happening in Warwick, and on Thursday's show we'll do our best to bring somebody in official capacity from Warwick in here to talk about the state of the city. Mr. Cote, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dan.
I appreciate it. Final word when we come back. I haven't heard from our Naval War College professor of world affairs, Mark Genest, in a while, but he's here tomorrow night to kind of check in on what's happening in Vietnam with the leader of North Korea and our president and whatever else is tangential to that very important story. So make a note of that for tomorrow evening. We'll talk to you on the radio at 3 until 6 on WPRO, as we do each weekday as well, and we'll keep our eye on Warwick. Good night.